Hello everyone, glad to see you on my channel. If you enjoy realistic horror stories based on urban legends and tales from park rangers, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. And now, the story. We don't search for those who break rule number 6. Story by Sam Stevenson. I worked as a ranger in a remote nature park in the southwestern United States. I won't say exactly where. If you've heard about this place, you'll figure out where it is as the story progresses. If not, maybe it's for the best. Definitely better. I've always loved nature, and the job of a ranger seemed incredibly tempting and romantic to me, walking in the woods, watching animals, enjoying the outdoors, saving forests and wildlife. So as soon as I got tired of office life, I decided to fulfill my longtime dream. There happened to be an open position in the state, and I got it. I can't say I regretted it. When I first started, I was issued the standard kit, a uniform, a radio, keys to the utility cabin, a map, and a GPS. I looked absolutely irresistible in the uniform, and walking through the forest made me incredibly happy. During my initial briefing, I was told I'd received the basics and would get additional info later once I'd settled in. Newbies don't get all the information at once. First, we watch how you adapt. Honestly, I didn't care. I just took it as distrust or corporate paranoia. The final part of my briefing was a trip to the sign with the main rules at the park entrance. There were 6 points, the most common ones. Don't litter, don't feed the animals, don't start fires outside designated areas, don't leave the trails, don't stay overnight in dangerous or undesignated areas. But the 6th point was covered with a thick black strip. It was canvas or some similar material as the rest of the sign, glued firmly, impossible to read. You could still make out the number clearly. The text itself, not at all. Returning to my partner, I asked about the 6th point. He thoughtfully looked at me, then down, glanced around a bit, and after giving me an intense stare said, "Later you'll find out. Probably better sooner though. Yeah. And, as if he was talking not to me but himself, he turned around and walked along the trail, throwing over his shoulder after a couple of seconds. "Follow me, we've still got a lot to do today." Honestly, during those first few days, I walked a lot, and it was exhausting. If it was about 10 or 15 miles from base, we went on foot. My partner was fighting excess weight, and as a rookie, I had to get used to walking a lot, and for a long time, that was my motivation. Incidentally, I still mostly walk. I started working just before the season opened, so our main task was checking the condition of old trails after winter, making sure paths were clear and campgrounds safe. Nothing supernatural. What truly was special were the sounds of nature, the spirit of discovery. It was incredibly valuable. It didn't even feel like work. I felt like I was just relaxing. Life was paradise. As soon as the season started, I was put in charge of the visitor register. Every tourist had to note their details, their planned route, and their expected return time before entering the park. Without this, they weren't allowed in. But sometimes there were trail ghosts. We literally had to chase them down. In any case, only registered tourists were allowed entry. This allowed us to track where everyone was and to promptly initiate rescue operations in case of danger. Tourists are, by and large, an unserious crowd. No one realizes the seriousness of entering the wild until some emergency happens. The constant questions, "Are you going to be watching us? Climbing into our tents at night? Haha," and so on. There were also overly chatty types, cracking jokes at every turn, talking nonstop, trying to find out about witches, Bigfoot, whether people disappeared here, and so forth. Firstly, it's probably not the best thing to discuss right before hiking. Perhaps superstition, but what if you're the joker who doesn't come back? Secondly, people do disappear in forests. It happens. Some are never found at all. That's why we have registration. But these jokers don't understand that. Their favorite pastime was asking why the 6th rule was covered. At first, I joked it off because almost every joker tried to ask about it, and then I'd say something like the park was old, that we had rules dating back before the 20th century and so on. It was the best way to change the subject, a foolproof way, especially since I didn't know myself. That day, I was on the night shift. My partner had registered tourists in the morning, and in the evening and at night, we monitored the forest and kept in touch with tourist groups, ready to respond quickly to emergencies. Occasionally, we checked in with group leaders by radio. This was sort of a drill, to keep tourists aware of safety and to remind them to charge their radios. Sometimes we clarified their coordinates if they were at a campsite, though rarely. That evening, I couldn't reach one group that had registered in the morning. According to the journal, they responded earlier in the day before I started my shift, but as twilight approached, there was no reply. However, their route passed through a small gorge about 10 miles from us, so it was quite possible that they had lost radio contact. If they hadn't managed to get through during daylight, they could have stopped to camp there. Therefore, nobody panicked, but I mentally noted that establishing contact with them first thing in the morning was a priority. The first half of the night was completely calm, apart from a heavy storm that started initially. I sat on the watchtower, periodically walking around, inspecting the surroundings. From the forest came the sound of branches cracking and trees creaking under gusts of wind. Soon the weather improved, and the rest of the night passed calmly, though my mood was strangely oppressive. Rarely did the night shift feel different. Maybe due to lack of sleep, it felt like dark figures were watching me from the treetops, periodically leaping from one crown to another when I looked at them, then descending into the forest. I drank some coffee, and the shadows seemed to disappear. When inside the watchtower, my mood instantly improved. Perhaps because it was warmer inside, or maybe because the glass windows seemed to serve as an invisible barrier against all the night's horrors lurking outside. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I noticed strange movement from the gorge's direction. A flashlight beam danced through the thick forest, occasionally illuminating the tops of trees with its dim glow. It was quickly approaching. I switched on the spotlight to illuminate the trail in front of the tower. Through the loudspeaker, I immediately asked how many there were, what happened, and where they needed to go. No answer, just the flashlight getting closer. I descended, taking a stun gun with me to scare off animals if anything was chasing them. A girl ran out towards me, covered in scratches and bruises from branches, soaked head to toe, barefoot, with torn clothing, glassy-eyed with terror and clearly crying. She simply collapsed onto me. I caught her, realizing no one was pursuing her. Rather, she seemed to have fled from something. I carried her to the tower, called for the senior ranger, and tried to bring her back to her senses. I wrapped her in a blanket and gave her some smelling salts. She regained consciousness. By then, the shift supervisor arrived, and we began to question her. Initially, the girl didn't understand where she was, but after several minutes, she started speaking little by little. It turned out she was part of the group that had registered in the morning. Ashley, that was her name, had set off yesterday morning with her friend Luca through the gorge towards the nearest campsite. They made frequent stops and, as I suspected, eventually set up camp near the edge of the forest on the outskirts of the gorge. Speaking almost in a whisper, she said, "Luca went into the forest at night. He said he heard someone calling his name. He said he would be back soon, that someone was calling for help. He just left into the dark. And then I heard a scream and branches breaking, as if something was approaching our camp. When I ran, something chased me. I heard a voice saying, 'Where are you? Where are you?' But it wasn't Luca. After that, I remember nothing." I looked at the shift supervisor. He carefully considered something, sighed, silently opened a notebook, and wrote, "Voluntary departure. Do not initiate a search." I asked, "Aren't we going to look for him?" "Never after sunset," he replied. "I'll wake Josh so you're not alone here." He took the girl with him. That same night, another ranger and I were on duty together. Around 3:30, about 20 minutes before sunrise, We heard a voice coming from the forest. "Help! Hey! I'm here!" My partner jumped up, grabbed the flashlight, and shouted, "Luca!" And immediately, click. The lights went out. Static filled the radios. I tried turning on the flashlight, but it crackled and died. Condensation formed on the watchtower windows, leaving trails as if hands had tried to grasp onto the glass, but slipped off. The wet streaks dragged downward, as though someone pressed their face against the window and slid down. We sat still, unmoving, as the voice gradually faded away until silence fell and the radios quieted. For a while, the closed door of the tower shook, as if someone was trying to open it, but I attributed it to sleep deprivation and wind rattling the door. We sat in silence, and I could hear our hearts pounding like drums. After some time, the lights switched back on, and the spotlight illuminated. I felt somewhat relieved, but my partner sat there as if he had seen a ghost. Over the next few days, I didn't see him. Colleagues said he had requested time off, and then he quit altogether. For several days after the incident, I slept poorly, plagued by nightmares of running through the forest with something chasing me, stopping briefly to watch me, then chasing again. They searched for Luca, but neither on the next day after Ashley ran to us, nor afterward, was he ever found. No trace of him remained. The police came, but they found nothing except the abandoned campsite. Thinking about it, I occasionally recalled rule number 6. What could it say? Perhaps it was meant precisely for cases like this? Over the next couple of weeks, my nightmares stopped, and the evening shifts became unusually calm. There were no oppressive moods, no disturbances, and I didn't feel as sleepy. It was as though everything that had influenced my condition had simultaneously quieted down, like a cat, recently hungry and clawing at wallpaper, now satiated and sleeping, bothering no one. A month later, a new group of tourists arrived and went along a route to the lake, a short hike, without an overnight stay. But by evening, they hadn't returned. Our new guy wanted to search for them, but the senior ranger on duty said firmly, "We wait until morning, or you'll go and never come back." The guy disobeyed orders and left during the night. We never found him either. Could that be exactly what rule number 6 warned against, not going into the woods at night? This mystery of rule number 6 gave me no rest. I'd heard that somewhere nearby lived an elderly ranger outside the park's boundaries. According to rumors, he was the only one who had ever broken the rule and survived. He lived alone in a small cabin deep in the woods. We talked a bit about how he became a ranger, what he liked about the job, and so on. The old man was fairly active for his age and seemed troubled by nothing. So I finally asked him directly, "Do you know what Rule 6 is?" He immediately fell silent and seemed to freeze in place. He stared past me, out the window, and said softly, "I broke it once. Went looking for a woman who got lost with her group in the woods. I thought I heard her. She called my name. I went after her and found no one. But afterward, that voice began calling me every evening. Then during the day, I close my windows, salt my thresholds, but it still calls. Not her voice anymore. Sometimes it falls silent, and it's gone for weeks or months, but then it comes back again. And since you asked, you're probably next." Fortunately, I wasn't haunted by the voice like that old man. I was probably too young for that. But sometimes, I admit, something would tap me on the shoulder in the woods, and I would turn around, only to see no one there, or something would hoot close by. Over the years, I got used to it, to the point I hardly noticed these things anymore. But a few days ago, on a trail near an old campsite, almost completely abandoned, just half a mile from where Ashley and Luca had camped, I saw fresh markings carved into a tree. "Help me. I hear you." Below it, scratched clearly, was my name. I decided to walk past it. Similar things had happened before during my many years working in this park, and I'd learned well not to stop, not to photograph, and not to talk about it. I simply walked away. Some say people vanish because at night, gas leaks cause hallucinations, making them fall into crevices where they can't be found. But I don't think that's true. The main sign at the entrance gate, particularly its hidden taped-over section, tells the real story. Rule 6 isn't a prohibition, it's a protective circle. Don't go into the woods at night, don't respond to voices from the woods, don't search for anyone who goes missing at night. These rules are the key to survival. Break them, and you won't return. Or you will, but something from the woods will remain with you as long as you're breathing. It won't stop until you're still here, until you're able to resist. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to more stories.